Hi guys, here from Pax Europiana from Vienna. I'm very thankful that you follow this channel. Please subscribe as well to my 620 or 30 it's now. That's very good. And I would like to now explain the key question of peace in Europe here, what we can do to end the war. First of all, there will be no peace with Russia. We have to get away from this illusion that there will be peace, or like even kind of a pre-2014 or even a pre-2022 situation. That is not gonna happen. We must be very clear on that one. But there can be an end of the fighting. And as a peace activist, I call for an end of the fighting, because war is terrible and it could have been avoided. And before the war now, before the escalation of the war, because the war is 2014 onwards, before the war and now the same is true. It can be only done by European responsibility, Western responsibility, meaning a clear NATO membership perspective. That is absolutely true for Ukraine, and also NATO intervention is key for peace. The illusion that Ukraine can fight alone, or this will be ending by some kind of magic agreement between Ukraine and Russia, it is absolutely an illusion. It's deadly wrong, and it will never happen. It's very logical that this cannot be concluded. If it would have been possible to make peace between the two, which are fighting for land and for direction of their countries, then there wouldn't have been any war. You know, and the war can, as they're fighting for the same land, they cannot find a settlement which is satisfactory for both sides, and there is no possibility for them to stabilize this conflict. And so we are in that situation. So what we need to do now is to have intervention, military intervention, absolutely 100% clear. That's the only way to make peace. And that's also very clear, but it must be a limited intervention with clear objectives and a clear strategy to get this done. And I will also outline exactly, as I've done in the previous video as well, what kind of settlement must be basically imposed by the West on the conflicting parties and enforced with military force. And security guarantee can only be given by NATO for Ukraine, because there is no other institution available, not the EU, not the Northern Alliance of Britain. There's only NATO, and there's only the EU, and Ukraine, free Ukraine, the free Federal Republic of Ukraine, must be in NATO and the EU, based on the Western German model. That's the logic of the Cold War we are in. It's the hot phase now in Ukraine, but also during the Cold War we had several hot wars, from Korea to Vietnam to Afghanistan, to many other conflicts in Africa and Asia and America. We just had stability in Germany, along a divided Germany. That was the main front for us in Europe and in reality for the world. And so it was also the same now in Ukraine, which is the new Germany. So the role model of the Western German integration in NATO is the same for not the Western Ukrainian, that's the wrong word, because it is not only the West Ukraine. That's a misunderstanding. Then we've used this term. That's why I use the term free Ukraine. And I have also a very clear description in terms of regions, what that means. That means free Ukraine is basically Ukraine, European Ukraine, without the Donbass and Crimea and Sevastopol. These are the four regions which we will not, and there is no way to reconquer them militarily. They are also, when Crimea and Sevastopol are lost since 2014, they will never be legally lost. There will always be the wish to unify, as in the German constitution was always written, until unification, the will to unify as a strategic national objective. There was also a big campaign against recognition of the GDR, and until 1971 it was also that Western Germany has not even worked with the GDR. They found some mechanisms to overcome this, and this is the settlement. But so what is the lost territory? The new GDR is basically the Donetsk and the Luhansk district, which are military anyhow soon very completely lost, and Crimea and Sevastopol, 4 lost, and 22 regions, if my count is right, 22 regions are of course forming the Free Federal Republic, which will be introduced the euro. Then they will join the customs union and it will be in the European Union in 2029. And that's the settlement, which is the logical result of our current war with Russia, and there will be no peace. Yeah, that will not be the, we had a conflict with the Soviet Union for 4 decades after the Second World War, and it will be now maybe only 2 decades because Russia is much smaller unit. We will have no nuclear war because there will be no attack on Crimea, no attack on Russia, so no need for a nuclear war, no kind of tactical nukes and all this kind of bullshit which is only serving Russia, this kind of things that they are discussed, and they are also only a kind of fear-mongering strategy of the Russians. There will be no Third World War style, but it will be the Second Cold War, and there will be no war in Ukraine anymore, because the borders of the Donetsk and Lugansk Oblast and of the Crimea Isthmus, that are clearly defined borders of the regions of Ukraine, and they will be the borders for this new GDR. If they will then integrate these 2 statelets into Russia and do Anschluss again, like they have done in 2014 with Sevastopol and Crimea, I mean, that's what empires do. That will be never recognized, will be always illegitimate, and we will always have a cause célèbre for the freedom of this then 4 districts. If they will do a state, we will never recognize it. If they do Anschluss, we will never recognize it. So no matter. But of course, in order to get this done, we need to sink all the ships of the Black Sea, because Russia has to be, in a way, somehow, how can I say, it will be essential to do the following things, and that is also very clear. It's not just giving up, surrender monkey, don't get me wrong here. No, the thing is very clear. We need to militarily intervene in the Black Sea, because it's ultimately a war for the control of the Black Sea. Liberate the Black Sea and sink one by one each Russian ship. One by one each Russian ship which is not in Sevastopol. If they are in Sevastopol, or they are not hostile and just commercial ships, you don't need to sink them. But every other Russian ship in the Black Sea must be sunk. And of course, part of the package, in order for Ukraine to accept such a settlement, must be the military liberation of Kherson and of Zaporozhye Oblast, because there is no reason why Russia should occupy Kherson and Zaporozhye Oblast. So they must be liberated, and liberated, of course, by Ukrainian forces mainly, but with Western air support and artillery support, and of course intervention of NATO. So it's absolutely illusionary. And then, of course, the guarantee of these borders by NATO membership. The guarantees along the oblast borders of Kherson and Zaporozhye in the NATO. And then there is the NATO-Russia border, Russian occupied territories inside Ukraine, like we had it in the case of East Germany, along the Crimea and Donetsk and Lugansk borders. And also around Kharkiv, then Russia has to withdraw into Lugansk and into Donetsk and into Crimea. And Zaporozhye, and that's basically also Mariupol. Mariupol cannot stay Russian. And Kherson for sure not. And the Dnieper must be liberated in order to have a successful Ukraine, because they cannot control the Black Sea via the Dnieper. And of course, until this is happened, the war will go on. And I guarantee you, there is no other peace settlement possible. And this is exactly the package which must be done. Ukraine is losing the control of Lugansk and Donetsk and Crimea and into some kind of Russian-backed statelet or by Anschluss. Tragic and very wrong. We will never recognize it. One day it will be unified. There will be Hallstein Doctrine, all these things. And of course, there will be clarity here that we will absolutely then liberate Zaporozhye and Kherson districts. That is, and also sink all Russian Black Sea ships. So that is the way for peace. Peace can only be made, contrary to what now many people say, by diplomacy. That's a blah 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 blah. And it's not diplomacy. It is very clear it is by war, by military means. Aggressors must be confronted, and when they are at the maximum of the power capacity and when they see the confrontation can no longer be won militarily, then it's the time, of course, for negotiation and diplomacy. But there must be an acceptable way for all sides. That means that also Ukraine must be happy with this, with the liberation of Mariupol. They will be very happy. And the liberation of Kherson, that's absolutely anyhow essential. There can be no kind of agreement without free Kherson, free Dnipro. And in order to have this very clear, Russia must be, all these Black Sea ships must be sunk. Each single one. If it's not in Sevastopol, it must be sunk. Yeah? And it's also not a hostile act against Russia, because there is no reason for them to be in Ukrainian territory or to attack Ukraine or to block. The blocking is by itself a hostile act. Yeah? To block somebody's ship, harbors, like they do it. And it's a Black Sea confrontation. Yeah? And Russian ships must be sunk, one by one. We have started well, and this must be done. And of course NATO must intervene. It's absolutely illusionary that this, we want to have a war for 10 years, another 10 years of war, continuously fighting in the steppe. That is the alternative to what I say. And only crazy people can want a decade-long war. And even then there will be the same settlement as I propose. Actually, I proposed it already. And we would have kept half of Donetsk and half of Lugansk, but they are lost in that settlement now. And many people would have been still alive, and will